Not enough people are talking about this, but I think the reason why red pill, manosphere influencers like Andrew Tate, Sneeko, Hamza have gotten so much influence and power over young men is that we don't have any other role models. Young men don't have healthy role models of what a strong, masculine, and healthy man looks like. We don't have heroes that are cool and worthy of looking up to anymore. And as a result, these people, these figures have come in and sort of taken over the internet by storm because there's a very clear lack of that role being filled. And it's a real shame because young men are particularly in a place of lacking direction, lacking purpose, lacking a sense of identity in the modern world. Before 100, 200 years ago, humans were evolved to be a certain type of way, right? Men and women had different roles in society. And for all the equality and the values that the modern world has brought us, it's also made it really unclear what purpose people serve, right? Everyone feels homogenized. Everyone feels like they're just blended in with the crowd, and nobody feels special. Nobody has a unique role or duty to play. And that can be really devastating because as women now have these new opportunities in the professional world, in even athletics and beyond, they're they're taking the place of traditional men, and not just physically like taking jobs and things like that, but but culturally and spiritually. It feels like this space that men once exclusively occupied, this sort of power that they held, is being stripped away. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think people should be able to embrace individualism and do what they want. But the consequence of that, and something that our generation has to deal with, is the fact that men don't feel like we have a core sense of identity. Men don't feel like it's okay to be proud to be a man, that we have resources to learn about healthy masculinity or masculinity at all. And so that's why it becomes so easy to follow these influencers and these gurus that tell you this is what being a man is, and tells you it in very clear concrete terms, instead of saying that, you know, gender doesn't exist, or that you shouldn't be proud to be a man, or that the patriarchy is ruining society. The problem is the patriarchy is the same thing that created these sort of influencers, but it's also it's internalized. It's the fact that it's accelerated and amplified by the fact that people are shaming young men for following these influencers, for following red pill or manosphere or whatever. But the truth is, we aren't taught growing up to connect, to be vulnerable, to be emotional, to create safe places for our friends to share their experiences, right? Even the word safe space is like a liberal, like, trigger term. But the truth is, like, many of us don't feel comfortable opening up to our closest friends, even our family, because that's just not something that men are taught to do. We're taught that it's not okay to do that. And it's really devastating because then people swing in the opposite direction, where your life just becomes about success and power and wealth and fame, and gathering as much resources as you can, and treating other people as tools to help you become successful, treating women as tools and objects of conquest. And it's just, I think it's destroying our ability to actually be fulfilled, to actually connect with people. And that's the thing that we're chasing in the first place. When we try, when we take on this character of ambition and hustle and grind culture, it's not because anyone inherently just loves working hard. It's because we want validation, we want respect. There's this quote that's like somewhat cliched and worn out, but it's like, I'd rather be feared than loved. And I don't know. I don't think anyone would actually rather be feared than loved, except someone who's so deeply insecure that power and control is their only way of feeling like they have any importance in the world. There's another quote from someone I follow on Twitter who said that most people are 3 secure friends from never thinking about status again. And I thought that was really powerful because for most of my life, I was constantly concerned with status, managing my image, managing what people thought about me, doing things so that people would like me, doing things so that people would think I'm cool, but also doing them in a way where it wasn't obvious to other people that I was doing it for their perception. You know, it's this kind of, I'm lying to myself as at the same time as I'm lying to everyone around me. And in the past 4 years, in the span of college, and not just college, but going through relationships, meeting new friends, traveling the world, starting multiple businesses, working in various fields, I met so many unique people that I got a sense of different kinds of people. And I mean this, and I could split in a million different categories, right? I could split it by cultures and attitudes, political beliefs. But one way that I noticed a really unique separator between 2 different types of people were the people that were very, very deeply secure in themselves, very confident, curious, and knew what they wanted, and the people who were constantly managing others' perception of them, constantly trying to people please, constantly trying to perform a script or to be seen a certain way. And most people fall to a greater degree in the second category than in the first. And I didn't really notice the separation until I met a couple people that really changed my perspective. One good friend of mine, Jake, I remember in college we would skateboard together, and every once in a while, you know, we would just skate at a local spot on our college campus, and every once in a while it would just be us. Usually there's other guys there and girls skating, but sometimes it would just be us two, and we would talk. And at this point, it was like freshman year, we weren't that close, but he would always be such a good listener, and he would always make me feel so seen. And he would always, in doing that, never make me feel any pressure as far as oversharing or as far as having to put on a performance or say the right thing. It felt like I could speak my truth to him, and he wouldn't judge me at all for it. And in fact, he would always be very supportive and helpful, especially when I was going through a really tough time early in college. And I realized that this level of listening and deep attentiveness and non-judgment was something that I'd never experienced before, or very rarely had. And I realized that it was only something that he could have done if he was deeply secure in himself. He didn't need me to prove anything to him, and as a result, I could tell that he didn't need to prove anything to me. And I learned this lesson a couple other times. One through this girl that I dated, one through a stranger that I met traveling in Bali who was just equally open and spacious and very deeply in touch with what he wanted without imposing that on other people. And in the past 4 years, I've realized that the security thing is what most people are hung up on. Most people don't ever get past this point. I meet adults and older people that are still caught up in this cycle of managing other people's perceptions, managing their image rather than connecting with what they really want. And it's really deeply saddening, and it's something that I think our society needs to work on, and especially teaching men this, because one thing I learned in my relationship is that girls talk to each other way more than guys about their inner experience, their feelings, their day-to-day lives, right? Guys talk about sports and video games and external actions, things that you do, or abstracted philosophies and ideas, right? It's like the physical realm and the mental realm. The physical realm out there, the mental realm, like, still out there. You're projecting these ideas and theories and concepts. But we never talk about our lived experiences, our bodily experiences. That sounds, kind of funny, but like our emotions, our inner experience of the world, the way that we go about our daily lives, and the fact that we don't share that makes it so much more intimate for guys to talk about their feelings with a girl. You ever notice that, when a guy gets into a relationship, they don't seem to hang out with their friends as much, and they feel this like unique sort of bond to their girlfriend, and it's often because for the first time in their life they're allowed to talk about their feelings. And it's heartbreaking that we as men don't get to experience this, that I as a man went 20 years of my life, right, before realizing that I could actually open up about my experience, that I could actually label my feelings. I didn't even know how to talk about them. Like, it's a foreign language. It took me, several years to even catch up on basic things like anger and disgust and shame. Anger, that one, granted, is one of the few emotions that men are allowed to experience and share. So that one's a bit easier to label, but these feelings of like sadness and loneliness and even joy, it's like, it feels really hard to share these things. But I think the more that we do, the more that we expose ourselves, within reason, remaining in control of our experience and our stories, but being vulnerable and allowing other people to be vulnerable, giving other people the space and the patience and the curiosity to wonder about what's going on in their inner lives. I think if we can do that with our friends, we can create spaces for that. It's going to create a lot of space for healthier masculinity. And I only hope that there will be more positive role models of what that healthy masculinity looks like. It might not be as algorithmically perfect, it's not as controversial, and so it won't be as viral, but I think there's a sense among growing among young men that there's a need for something more holistic. There's a need for something healthier than the default right now. And so I trust and I believe that, society and the zeitgeist will move towards this more holistic sense. And it might be slow, but I want to contribute to that. I want to be a part of that. And that's a big part of why I make these videos. Even if they're not reaching anyone right now, even if these in particular never do, I'm cultivating my own interpretation of this so that I can share this with other people, so that I can teach this, and so that I can become a better man myself. I can be a better version of myself, and I can, break these cycles of trauma and violence, or whatever you want to call it, but create a new world, a new way of being for men that allows us to freely acknowledge and express our experience. So yeah, that's all I got for today. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, drop a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know if this resonated. And stick around. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.